ago, I went to university for the first time. I mean, it is many years ago now. It's depressing when you think that in the years since I graduated, other people have been born, gone to university, graduated, and had children of their own. So, makes you feel a little bit old. But in 1991, I went to Imperial College to study pure maths, and I very distinctly remember a class by Professor Liebeck, who was an algebraist, and he was reading through, it was in the first week, he was reading through the list of people who were there, like Sophie Carnaby, Jason X. Richards. So what does the X stand for? Xerxes, my mum read it in a book. So I, for the whole of my life, I've remembered Jason Xerxes Richards. I even looked him up yesterday, or the day before yesterday, to see what he was up to, see how he was doing, because there can't be many Jason Xerxes Richards around. And I found him, and it must be him, because he's 6 months older than me. So, what a funny name, but there you go. So, Jason Xerxes Richards. And this story is set indeed in the time of King Xerxes. So, this is the story of Esther, and it's set in the kingdom of an important historical king called Xerxes. So, Xerxes. That's quite a name, isn't it? He ruled over a large area of Asia and North Africa, but most of the action in this story takes place in the citadel of Susa, where the king had his palace. This city is now a World Heritage Site in Iran. Xerxes was looking for a new wife. You see, he didn't have enough wives and concubines, so he was looking for a new one. And he sent his servants looking through the land for a beautiful young woman to select to be his queen. And this is where we meet Esther, the main character, one of only 2 women to have a book of the Bible named after them, the other, of course, being Ruth. She was one of a number of women selected for their beauty. They were then subjected to or endured a year of beauty treatments. I don't even know what you could do in a year of beauty treatments that would make you look much different to how you look now, really. I mean, anyway. After a year of beauty treatments, the king was more attracted to her than to any of the other ladies present, and so he chose her to be his queen. What Xerxes didn't know was that Esther was Jewish, and there were at this time a number of Jews exiled in Xerxes' kingdom, but Esther had been wisely advised, that's hard to say, by her cousin, stroke mentor, stroke adopted father, Mordecai, not to reveal her cultural heritage. Haman, who we met earlier, is another significant character in the story. Boo. A king's right-hand man. He hated Mordecai because Mordecai would not bow down to him. So Haman devised a plan to kill Mordecai and all the Jews living in the kingdom, and he manipulated King Xerxes to destroy the Jews, and eventually an edict was sent out that all the Jews should be killed and their property confiscated. We join the story when Mordecai has learnt about the plot against his people. He has gone to the palace to ask Esther for help. Esther was not aware of the situation, living in her lovely bubble in the palace. The news had not yet reached her. He asks her to go to Xerxes and plead for the fate of her people. You can always sense the tension. This is a pregnant moment in history. It is full of possibilities. Esther has a chance to do something significant, something that will change the lives of her persecuted people. The future is open to her decisions and actions. And there are times when the future is open to us too, when our decisions and actions can bring about something special or significant. And I wonder if this is time for the Christian church in this country to stand up in defense of other persecuted people, some of whom come from the very country in whom this story, where this story is set. Should we be making a statement in support of refugees, not just as our church, but as the church in this country? There are many occasions in Scripture where God gives people a chance to do something, and they seize the opportunity with both hands. But there are also missed opportunities. Throughout the Old Testament, Israel frequently and willfully ignores the prophets that God has sent to warn them. And in the New Testament, Jesus weeps over Jerusalem because they didn't realise it was their time. In our reading from Ephesians, it says, we should be careful how we live, making the most of every opportunity. And we are given opportunities each day, small ones sometimes, large ones sometimes. Esther had an opportunity, but it came at a price. No pain, no gain. Sacrifice was involved and the cost had to be counted. She could have lost her life. The king hadn't seen her in 30 days. Maybe she was going out of favour. Had he been in a bad mood, that could have been her gone. Access to the king was strictly controlled in order to prevent attempts on his life. Anyone who approached the king without a prior invitation risked the penalty of death. It was against the law. The only exception was if the king held out his sceptre to welcome them as they approached. Scary stuff. But there's always a cost. There's always a risk. The same is true for us. The cost has to be counted and a decision has to be made. We have the choice to say no after we have counted the cost. After all, saying yes could risk the quality of our lives, or even the length of our lives, as in Esther's case. World changers seldom have safe lives, but they always have significant ones. I don't know if you remember the old film Steel Magnolias with Julia Roberts. I love that film. Great film. Yeah, it's a great film. In Steel Magnolias, Julia Roberts plays a character who has a heart complaint and is told that if they were to have a baby, it could mean that their heart would fail. And her mum really doesn't want her to get pregnant. She gets married, she wants to have a baby. And they say to her, well, the mum says to her, about the risk, and she says, I look at having this baby as an opportunity of a lifetime. Sure, there may be some risk involved, but that's true for anybody. I would rather have 30 minutes of wonderful than a lifetime of nothing special. She made a decision. Esther made a decision. She went to the king. She knew the risks of going uninvited, and she told Mordecai that she would endanger her life to grant his request. Mordecai points out 3 things to her. 1, her life is in danger anyway, as the edict means that she too could be executed if she was found out for being Jewish. Number 2, God would not allow the Jews to be destroyed. He would find another way to save them, but her and her family, father's family, would perish. And the 3rd thing is, the right thing to do was obvious. This is the purpose of her life. God obviously planned for Esther to become queen in order for her to save her people. It was as if God was saying to Esther, this is your moment. This is why I put you here. Are you going to do something significant or not? God will find people to make a difference. Will it be us? I remember someone telling me a story. I can't remember who it was. It was a big international evangelist of some sort, and he was doing this particular ministry. And I said, why are you doing this? He said, well, God called me to do it. And they said, well, why you? He said, I asked God the same question. He said, why me? There are more suitable candidates than I. There are people who are better equipped to do this than I am. And God said to him, I asked 3 and they said no. That's a very specific answer. But sometimes God asks us to do something and we say no, and he finds somebody else. And it's not, we miss out. The thing still gets done. God's will still happens. He still achieves what he wants to achieve, just not through us. Esther made a decision. She chose to risk her life. She chose to go to the king to plead for her people. She told Mordecai, I will go to the king, even though it is against the law. and if I perish, I perish. She counted the cost and chose to take the risk. She did what was right, even though it was against the law, and it could have cost her her life. In some countries, this is a choice that Christians make every day. To do something that is against the law, that may cost them their lives, but is right. The funny thing is, when she went to the king, he simply held out his scepter. Oh great, glad to see you. And she was spared. She told him about Haman's plot against her people, and as a consequence of her action, her people were saved. Xerxes realised how manipulative Haman was, and he hung Haman on the gallows that Haman had prepared for Mordecai. Poetic justice, I suspect. We always have opportunities, every day as we're out and about in our lives. We have opportunities to behave in a way that is honouring of God's kingdom. We have opportunities to speak about our faith in a way that is appropriate when we're invited to do so. I don't condone wandering around ramming the gospel down people's throats. It doesn't work, and it's not right. But people are interested in faith. They are interested in spirituality. They are interested in your story. And if we appropriately, when people ask us about our faith, they're able to give an answer, that's an opportunity that we should take. If they then go, that's lovely, did you see the football last Saturday? The conversation has moved on and the invitation has been rescinded effectively. But if they go, well, that's interesting. How did you come to that decision? Why do you go to church? Then you have an opportunity to continue to talk. But we have opportunities every day. And sometimes the opportunities can bring about something wonderful in the lives of other people. But there is a sacrifice, there is a risk. People might think we're numpties. It's a chance. People might back away from us in our friendships, in our relationship with them. There is a risk. But the reward is amazing. Do you know what the only thing you get to take to heaven with you is? You don't get to take your clothes or your money or your house. The only thing you can take to heaven with you is somebody else who you've shared the good news with. We have opportunities in every day. But the sacrifices is real. But God has brought us a challenge, I think. And if not you, then he will use somebody else, but we will lose the opportunity to make a difference for God, and an opportunity for God to work through us, and an opportunity for us to grow too. Maybe this applies equally to churches as individuals. Maybe God is challenging us, South Ashford Baptist Church, to do something significant for him, something that proclaims his kingdom loudly in this community. And if so, it will not be without cost. It will not be without risk. A cost will have to be counted and a decision will have to be made. A risk assessment on a spiritual level. But maybe this is our moment. Maybe God is giving us a chance to make a difference in this community. I don't know about you, but I do feel a certain tension in the air. Is this a pregnant moment in history, full of possibilities? Where we're given the opportunity to do something wonderful for God. Now, I'm challenged by steel magnolias. I'd rather have 30 minutes of wonderful than a lifetime of nothing special. And I'm very much in favour of going, well, let's just give it a go. Let's just do what God is calling us to do. I'm a bit like hang the consequences, but so was Haman. So there you go. It's a gallows humour, literally. It's as if God is saying to you, to me, to us as a congregation, and perhaps to the church in Ashford in this country, are you going to do something significant or not? Are you going to step out in faith and say, well, if I perish, it perish. If this goes pear-shaped, it'll go pear-shaped. But maybe this is the time. And as I say, I feel a certain tension in the air. I feel that God is working in our lives and has brought about situations for such a time as this to give us an opportunity to shout out loudly about the goodness and the grace and the love of God in this community. So, as I say, it's as if God is saying, this is our moment. Are you going to do something significant or not? We're going to sing now, before we share communion together, we're going to sing How Great Thou Art. It's a reminder